And the book concludes with a discussion of how far a focus on meaning may contribute to an interdisciplinary dialogue around this important substantive issue in the lives of young people. And as part of this discussion in the book, I also explore the meanings of meaning itself and how these relate to and cross-cut the various disciplinary perspectives. Perhaps some of the existing contradictions and complexities that are very apparent in the research evidence might start to be unravelled if we pay more attention to the meanings that any particular bereavement has for a young person and the way in which he or she incorporates those meanings or struggles to incorporate them into their biography and personal identity. So my answer to the question of singular identity or plural identities is therefore that young people's experiences of bereavement may raise important issues about both identity and identities. On the one hand, since the great majority of young people report having experienced a significant bereavement in their lives, do we need to understand bereavement as a normal part of growing up and developing adult and other identities? Now, perhaps it may come as some surprise that the vast majority of young people do report having experienced a significant bereavement in their lives, whether they're talking about a family member, a friend or a peer, an unborn child or a lover. And yet bereavement is not treated as a mainstream issue in academic youth or family studies or in services for young people. It's thus positioned as a marginalised aspect of youth identities. But if we bring it into focus, it potentially points to some important theoretical issues. For example, if death is the ultimate challenge to the Enlightenment project of rationality and control, what's the significance of bereavement during the teenage years, when youth is socially constructed as a key period for the development of responsibility, rationality, self-control, governance, particularly in relation to emotions, relationships, aspects of embodiment and identity development? On the other hand, for some young people, a particular bereavement, such as the death of a parent or sibling, may be so overwhelming that it may be experienced as a loss like nothing else they've ever known, creating a major threat to identity, to biographical continuity, and to existing individual meanings and assumptive worlds. Over time, such a bereavement may come to constitute a key but often hidden part of core identity, which the individual may struggle to integrate with other identities, leading to a strong sense of difference and isolation. Translating this into a group identity may thus often be found to be a welcome experience, for example through participation in a peer support group with other similarly bereaved young people. And I'm going to quote Maeve here to you, who is one of our case studies, and she's talking about her friends and their reactions to the death through suicide of a close friend. She says, "It's not something that's supposed to happen when you're 18. We went to Owen's house, the whole gang of us, didn't leave each other for like 3 days. We were just always together and did everything together. It was really strange. God, it was terrible. It really changed everyone like. It was his anniversary a couple of weeks ago." So how are we to view these variable experiences of normality or difference, of bereavement? Is it a dichotomy or a continuum? Furthermore, might the same experience have changing significance for the same individual at different times and in different contexts, shaping, constituting and interweaving with variable and plural identities, for example as a family member or a religious adherent? Perhaps bereavement as a major life event, sometimes amounting to a crisis, a life crisis, provides a particularly pertinent area for exploring why we may need to keep both identity and identities in view. So while bereavement may thus be initially understood in terms of its implications for personal identity in the singular, and it is this focus on the individual that predominates in the existing literature, I'd suggest it's also crucial that we develop an interdisciplinary dialogue to understand the ways in which a range of bereavement experience may constitute part of the more general fluid identities of young people in transition to adulthood. In the course of such a dialogue, perhaps we can develop more complex understandings of the ways in which such individual and group identities are interwoven with social contexts and structurally patterned features of social life.
Can somebody turn the phone off, please? Because it is the phone or not?
It'll be a phone receiving a signal, but somebody will have it on silent. But
the thing that we
what will have
the thing we should say is that it's no good putting it on silent. It still receives in this room because of the.
But I'll run with the music. It's it kind of might bring us to life. It's at this point that I realise my somewhat laissez-faire approach to speaking, having no prepared notes except for the ones I hastily scribbled, may have been an error. But I think freestyle presentation is always full of ups and downs, and I hope that this will have more ups than downs. I'm Darren Langdridge, the only phenomenologist in the village, and I'm a perverse and twisted creature that loves the work of Paul Ricoeur, particularly a French hermeneutic phenomenologist, and his work influences mine. The book's about methodology, but the substantive topic I address is mostly sexualities. And here we go. Okay. It might be the pacemaker, actually. It could be something really quite tragic. But I'll keep going. Never one to let death interfere with my work. In answer to the issue of identities, I guess what I've noticed, actually, is increasingly everybody's talking about needing both. We're not kind of engaging in the knockdown arguments of yesteryear, where it's just like, no, identity, nonsense, must be fragmented. And that's an interesting move, and it's one I agree with and share. And for me, one of the things that Ricoeur talks about is the way he approaches philosophy is very much both rather than either or. This is why he was never truly fashionable, why probably he isn't terribly familiar to many of you. He never kind of swept in, on the kind of fashion of continental philosophy and said that everything that went before him was rubbish and that he had the answers. But instead actually tried to intervene in a number of critical debates, Habermas and others, to provide a way through which actually encompassed the good, as he saw it, in both positions. And I think that's what I kind of see people actually doing now between identity singular and identities plural, is trying to use both and trying to use what is useful in both. So I think, I tend to agree with this, and I think the key really is to try and find some way of engaging a dialectic so that we can actually work theoretically and critically between both positions. Because I'm progressive and radical, and I don't think I want to go back to the dark days of identity singular. I want us to move on. I want to kind of radicalise the project, and I want us to fundamentally problematise those very fixed and singular notions of identity. But I think they have political purchase. I think they have methodological purchase. I think they have a degree of power and utility. I think they're important for our phenomenology. I think we live in a way that actually means that something like that, having to hold on to some fixed sense of identity, is important to us in our everyday lives. So I don't think we should throw the baby out with the bathwater and abandon them completely. But I do worry somewhat about a return to yesteryear, if you like. And so I think we need to engage critically with both. But not just vacillate between the two, as the whim takes us, but instead try and engage some sort of dialectic which is actually progressive rather than regressive. A spiral, if you like, where we're actually developing our agenda, opening up possibilities. In a sense, it's a Sartrean notion of kind of trying to open up possibilities. A project that's teleological, looking forward rather than archaeological, and digging back beneath the surface. So I kind of see very much all sorts of possibilities in engaging with both identity singular and identities plural, but think we need to kind of engage with this at a meta-theoretical level critically and be quite aware of what we're doing and cautious about the way we're doing it. For me, identities are both aspects of talk and also aspects of our sort of embodied material semiotic kind of lived experience, if you like. For phenomenologists, we focus often on what's called the life world. And we talk about the life world as kind of the stuff that's out there between us and the world. Merleau-Ponty said there is no inner man, man is in the world, and only in the world does he know himself. And I think that's so true, that the issues of agency and structure, the issues of inside and outside, the issues of identity and identities can all be, in a sense, superseded and moved beyond if we can, in a sense, not adopt a God's eye view because we're all positioned, embedded within ideologies and structures, but if we can adopt at times a critical perspective and then at other times fall back into a perspective that's less so.